Flight 914, the plane that returned from the past. Low ambient hum, distant static on radio. Imagine this. You're an air traffic controller, routine afternoon, coffee going cold on your desk. Then, a blip appears on your radar screen. A plane. No flight plan on record, no communication, nothing. You try the radio, silence. Then, a voice, crackling, confused. A pilot who sounds genuinely lost, not in the way pilots get lost today, but lost in a way that makes your skin go cold. Because the plane on your screen? It departed 37 years ago, and according to every record that exists, it never landed. Flight 914, the plane that returned from the past. Act 1, the flight that vanished. July 2nd, 1955. Pan American World Airways Flight 914 takes off from New York's Idlewild Airport, what we now call JFK. It's a routine domestic flight, destination Miami, Florida. On board, 57 passengers and a crew of 4, a Douglas DC-4, 4 propeller engines, one of the most dependable aircraft of its era. The weather was clear, the pilot experienced. There was no distress call, no warning, no mayday. The plane simply disappeared. Search teams were deployed, the route was scoured, coastal waters were checked. Nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no debris, no black box signal. The aircraft and everyone on it had simply ceased to exist as far as the rest of the world was concerned. Families mourned, airlines filed reports, investigations were opened and quietly closed. With no evidence pointing anywhere, there was nothing left to investigate. Flight 914 became a ghost, a number in an accident ledger, a tragedy without an ending. Until September 9th, 1992. It's a routine afternoon at Caracas Airport in Venezuela. Air traffic controller Juan de la Corte is at his station. The day has been unremarkable. Then, something unusual. A radar blip, coming in low. No transponder code, no filed approach, no communication. He keys his radio, calls the unknown aircraft. Static, more static. Then a voice answers. But the conversation that follows is nothing like any he's had before. The pilot identifies the aircraft as Pan American Flight 914, departing New York, bound for Miami. He asks for approach guidance. He sounds calm, professional, completely unaware that anything is wrong. De la Corte checks his records, cross-references the flight number. His hands go still. Pan American Flight 914 disappeared in 1955. That's 37 years ago. He looks at his radar. The blip is real. The signal is real. The voice on the other end is real. He guides the aircraft in. The plane lands. What happens next is where the story gets truly strange. Ground crew approach the aircraft. They report something that stops them cold. The plane looks old. The livery is the original Pan American design from the 1950s. The aircraft itself, despite 37 years supposedly having passed, shows no deterioration consistent with age. And then the door opens. Passengers begin to appear at the windows, confused. Looking out at an airport they don't recognize, a world that looks nothing like the one they remember. One passenger holds a calendar. The date on it? July 1955. For them, no time has passed, not a single day. Act 3. The pilot speaks. According to the reports that circulated, the pilot, described as clearly distressed, came to the cockpit door. He looked at the ground crew, he looked at the airport, then he looked at one of the officials holding a clipboard with the date printed on it. September 9th, 1992. His face, witnesses said, went completely white. He went back inside, spoke to his crew, then the plane, inexplicably, powered up again. Despite attempts to stop it, despite personnel moving toward the aircraft, the Douglas DC-4 taxied back, gathered speed, and took off. It disappeared into the clouds. It was never seen again. The passengers, the crew, gone. Again. The only thing left behind? A single calendar. A small, pocket-sized calendar, dated July 1955. Found on the tarmac near where the plane had stood. A souvenir from another time. What does science say? Now, before we go any further, let's talk about what's actually known. Because this story exists in a very strange place. The place where urban legend, tabloid journalism, and genuine human curiosity all collide. The Flight 914 story was first published widely by the Weekly World News, a supermarket tabloid famous in the 1980s and 90s for stories that were, to put it gently, not grounded in conventional reality. The story ran with dramatic photographs, eyewitness quotes, and just enough detail to feel plausible to a casual reader. And it spread rapidly. This was before the internet made fact-checking instantaneous. Stories traveled through conversations, through photocopied articles passed hand to hand, through late-night radio, and this one had everything. Mystery, tragedy, the supernatural, and, most powerfully, the idea that somewhere out there, 61 people were frozen in time, completely unaware that the world had moved on without them. Investigators and journalists who looked into it found no verifiable records. No Juan de la Corte on any Caracas air traffic control roster for that date. No official Venezuelan aviation report. No corroborating witnesses beyond what the tabloid provided. The FAA has no record of the original disappearance in 1955 matching those details. There is no verified crash, no verified reappearance. To official institutions, Flight 914 never existed. Why we believe. And yet, the story persists. Decades later, it still circulates. It's been shared millions of times online. YouTube videos on the subject have accumulated hundreds of millions of views combined. People debate it in comment sections with the same energy as they debate things that actually happened. Why? Because the story touches something deep. Every culture in human history has stories about time behaving strangely. The Japanese legend of Urashima Taro, a fisherman who visits an underwater palace and returns home to find centuries have passed. The Irish tales of people taken by ferries who return thinking only hours have passed, but find decades gone. Rip Van Winkle, Rigadoon. Thousands of variations across thousands of years. We are drawn to the idea that time is not as fixed as we think, that somewhere, in the ocean, in the clouds, at the edges of understood physics, there might be places where the normal rules simply don't apply. And there's something else. The passengers of Flight 914, whether real or imagined, are a kind of ghost story that isn't about death. They're alive, they're intact. They just exist in the wrong time. There's something both terrifying and strangely beautiful about that. They got on a plane to visit Miami. They don't know yet that everyone they love has grown old or died. They don't know that the world outside has changed beyond recognition. In their version of reality, it's still 1955. The coffee on the plane is still warm. That image haunts us because we all know what it is to be out of step with time, to feel like the world moved on while you weren't looking. Here's what makes this particular legend so sticky. It's not entirely disconnected from real events that have genuinely puzzled aviation experts. History is full of disappearances that were never fully explained. Amelia Earhart, 1937. The most famous aviator in the world vanishes over the Pacific. Despite decades of searching, no confirmed wreckage has ever been definitively identified. Flight MH370, 2014. A modern Boeing 777 with 239 people on board disappears over the Indian Ocean. One of the most advanced search operations in history, covering millions of square kilometers, recovered almost nothing. To this day, the primary wreckage has not been found. The full truth of what happened remains unknown. And then there are the stories that come from pilots themselves, experienced, credentialed professionals who report things they cannot explain. Unexplained lights, radar returns that appear and vanish, moments of spatial disorientation that don't match any weather condition on record. The sky is genuinely mysterious, not in a tabloid way, in a real physics of the atmosphere, limits of human understanding way. We map it with satellites and radar, and still, things happen up there that we don't fully understand. Flight 914 takes that real uncertainty and wraps a story around it. And that story has the shape of a dream you can't quite shake. Let's ask the question the story really wants us to ask. What if it were true? Not in a credulous way, but as a thought experiment. As a way of exploring what we actually believe about time and consciousness and the nature of reality. If 61 people stepped off a plane in 1992, having experienced no time since 1955, what would that mean? For physics? For our understanding of consciousness? For the people themselves? Think about it from their perspective for a moment. They boarded a plane, the flight was normal, and then, without any experience of transition, they were somewhere else. An airport that looked wrong, people in strange clothing, cars they didn't recognize through the windows. An official holding a clipboard with a date that made no sense. For those few minutes on the tarmac, if the story were real, they were the most disoriented human beings who had ever lived. Not lost, not confused, simply displaced. Existing in a moment that should not have been possible. And then the pilot made a decision. He took his people back into the sky, back into whatever strange corridor had delivered them to the wrong year. Maybe hoping it would work again. Maybe knowing it wouldn't. Either way, gone. The only thing left, a small paper calendar, July 1955. On a tarmac in September 1992. Flight 914 is almost certainly a fabricated story. The evidence for that is clear. It originated in a tabloid known for fiction. It has no verifiable documentation. It contradicts recorded aviation history. And yet, 30 years after that story first circulated, you were watching this video. Millions of people have watched videos like this. The story is more alive now than it was when it was first published. That tells us something. It tells us that we are hungry for the idea that reality has edges, that the rules we live by might have exceptions, that somewhere, in some slant of late afternoon sky, there is a Douglas DC-4 that doesn't know what year it is, and inside it, 57 passengers who are perfectly fine, perfectly unaware, still thinking about what they'll do when they land in Miami. Maybe that's enough. Not truth, but a story so perfectly constructed to haunt us that it might as well be. Some mysteries are real, some mysteries are invented, and some, like Flight 914, become real simply because we can't stop telling them. The skies have always held secrets. Maybe not this one, but somewhere up there, something is waiting to be found.